The flood of allegations about Jimmy Savile's behaviour is now engulfing some of the many institutions he was involved with. The NHS, the care system, and of course the BBC, including Newsnight. 13 police forces are now investigating multiple claims of the sexual abuse of children and teenagers. Why weren't the victims given greater protection? At Stoke Mandeville Hospital in Buckinghamshire, Jimmy Savile roamed at will. He was given a room and welcomed as a celebrity fundraiser, sprinkling stardust and targeting young patients.
It's quite taken with the fact that we had a pop star type person.
Caroline was 13 at the time and being treated for spinal injuries.
He just bent down and he rammed, and that is the only way that I can describe it. He just rammed his tongue right down my throat. I told my mum and dad, and I told people that I come into contact with, but nothing. I mean, I don't even think my parents took it seriously, because I was a 13-year-old girl. He was who he was, or who he was supposed to have been, and I don't think that they necessarily believed. Well, they never took it seriously.
Jimmy Savile volunteered as a night porter at Leeds General Infirmary. Sickness and disability were no protection for the patients he abused.
He started kissing her neck, running his hands up and down her arms, and then started to molest her. When the nurse eventually came in, because I was on hourly obs, I mentioned Jimmy Savile, pointed over to where he was, and I said, if he comes anywhere near me, I'll scream the place down. And yes, I would have done.
It's emerged that some nursing staff at Stoke Mandeville were aware of the Savile problem.
The nurses weren't happy. They weren't at all enthused about his impending arrival, but there was an air of resignation that something they had to put up with. And there was some sort of ironic chatter between them about who would be the lucky one to go off with him to his room. And then as one of the nurses was leaving or passing by my bed, she leant over and said, and the best thing you can do is stay in bed till he's gone and pretend to be asleep.
The two hospital trusts are now helping police to establish how those in their care were let down. They're not alone. The care system, designed to protect some of society's most disadvantaged young people, is accused once again of failing them. Duncroft School in Surrey is now a block of smart flats. As an approved school in the 70s, it housed troubled and very bright teenage girls. Again, Jimmy Savile was welcomed in by staff.
He represented, in a way, you know, this idea that he was going to be our saviour, and in fact, it was completely the antithesis of that, because what he did was abuse us. The girls were just saying that he never stopped eyeing up their tits, and how he lined everybody up to kiss them all goodbye, you know, and he stuck his tongue in their mouths and he touched their breasts. And this was kind of common knowledge about him. You know, this is the sort of thing that you knew about him. It wasn't accepted, but it was like, oh, Jimmy Savile's coming, you know, and you kind of knew, but you didn't really have any power to do anything about it, because he still represented this idea that he was going to, you know, give you some hope.
Savile would sweep up in his Rolls-Royce, doling out cigarettes, records and offers to see his shows being filmed.
Every day we hear from people who have not disclosed abuse for 20, 30, sometimes more years, so there's nothing in the least unusual about the fact that these victims are coming forward now.
But there were complaints about Savile at Duncroft, and in 2007, Surrey police began investigating. A file was sent to the Crown Prosecution Service, only for the investigation to be dropped through lack of evidence. The now notorious children's home, Haute de la Garenne in Jersey, was also visited by Savile, resulting in further accusations. It wasn't just Surrey police that investigated Savile. A total of 5 forces received complaints while he was still alive. So why was he never held to account? This former officer from Thames Valley Police was told by a nurse at Stoke Mandeville that Savile was abusing patients. He took the matter to his superiors, but was rebuffed.
I was not believed. No. No. I think purely because at that stage, and for many, many years, of course, Savile was an icon.
When rumours attach themselves to public figures, the media are often the first to get wind of it. It's become clear that happened in this case, and yet newspapers and broadcasters didn't run with the story. Why not?
Hey, welcome to Top of the Pops.
Several former BBC staff have come out to say they were aware of Savile's predatory behaviour in the 70s and 80s. The BBC has announced it will hold an independent inquiry into who knew what about their fallen star once the police give the green light. More recent decisions are also under scrutiny.
What sort of music would you like?
After Savile died, I was part of a Newsnight team that investigated claims of sexual abuse. The allegations centred on Duncroft School in Surrey, but they included Stoke Mandeville Hospital and Television Centre. Newsnight decided not to run the story for editorial reasons. The BBC is under pressure to explain why the story was not broadcast and whether any influence was brought to bear by senior executives ahead of the Christmas tribute programmes for Savile.
Once senior executives at the BBC knew that there was an investigation into Jimmy Savile, and they could see their Christmas schedules and they could see celebratory programmes about Jimmy Savile, it's absolutely the first thing you do is, can I see the item before I do anything else?
In January, newspapers knew about the Newsnight investigation, but most only took an interest after the ITV documentary into Savile screened last week. This scandal began with one man, but it doesn't end there. Some of the country's most powerful institutions are having to ask themselves searching and uncomfortable questions.